Hi everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to Boudica Flame of the Iceni, episode 7, Choices, part 2. Tonight's episode is a little bit more of a feature-length episode, so we are going to sort of jump straight in. I'll just hand you over to the cast so that they can introduce themselves and so you know who's playing who. And then we'll jump straight in, so thank you very much. If I can hand over to Jane to start with, please, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane. I'm playing Boudica this evening, and I'd like to hand over to Em.
I'm playing Cadwallader and pass over to
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm going to be playing Sabina and also one of the narrators this evening, and I'd like to pass you over to Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I will be playing Stepanides, Finn, Andilico, and the boy, and I would like to pass you over to Becky.
Oh, I'm Becky. I'll be playing Branwen, and I'm one of the narrators tonight as well. I'd like to hand you over to Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm going to be playing Jodak and Adminios this evening, and I'm going to pass you over to Alice, please.
Hi, I'm Alice, and I'll be narrating and playing Merla, Epolina, and Mutas this evening, and I'd like to pass you over to Laura.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Laura. I'm going to be playing Aeronwen this evening, and I would like to pass you over to Kylie and Elric.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kylie, and I will be playing the role of Thusnelda, Tyro, Junior Centurion, and the woman this evening.
And I'm Elric. I'm going to be playing Rufus, Jacomus, and Agro. And we'd like to pass you over to Curtis, please.
Hi, I'm Curtis, and I'll be playing Decarius tonight, and I will hand you back over to Laura.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So we've got our narrators as well this evening. If you guys would like to lead us in, that'd be fantastic. Hope everybody enjoys it. And thank you again for joining us.
Boudica, Flame of the Iceni, episode 7, Choices, part 2, by Laura J. Harris.
Previously.
Recap of the action during previous episodes, including Jodak struggles to dress. He loses his temper. Weeps, stares at the flames which seem to mock him. Intercut with.
Branwen writhes around in bed, unconscious and unwell. Merla enters with supplies.
Why not you?
Intercut with.
Branwen continues to stir fitfully. Thusnelda prepares her proffers a drink. Boudica looks horrified.
No, Thusnelda.
She wriggles like her mother did.
The pair support Branwen so that she can drink.
When will we know if it has worked?
We must wait.
Intercut.
Branwen struggles to cope with flashbacks. Jodak being nailed to the crossbar. The fight with Asvaldus. Images of Nixos, Junius flood her mind. Images of Branwen being stripped by Sophus and Velius. She collapses. Intercut with.
Agro holds Aeronwen beyond the burnt-out wreck of the Great Hall. He tries to comfort her. He shouts at others to keep moving and be on their way. Intercut with.
Agro and Aeronwen stand before the Great Hall, staring at it.
I didn't thank you for saving me from the flames.
Aeronwen, you don't need.
I didn't thank you because I didn't want to be saved.
Intercut with.
Aeronwen visits Branwen. She cries at her sister's bedside.
I just want you to come back to us, Bran. I just want you back.
As Aeronwen breaks, Boudica moves in and takes her daughter in her arms.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, Aeronwen. We must meet with the clan leaders. You must call a council of war.
Intercut with.
Sabina and Decarius receive letters in Camulodunum. Sabina looks distraught.
It's from Catus. He's already in Gaul.
Intercut with.
Back at the house.
The boy who brought us the letters, where did he come from?
I couldn't say.
Intercut with.
The War Council is gathering at Iceni.
I'd heard rumours. I didn't want to tell you because that's all I thought they were. Rumours.
Rumours?
Regarding Decianus's recent conduct with the Iceni.
Intercut with.
Decarius races back to the villa.
He didn't want anyone to know where he was because he needed time to escape.
Escape? Escape what?
Cut with.
Aeronwen continues to struggle, but eventually stands with her mother to address the War Council.
The army that is massing. I have booked you passage on a ship sailing for Gaul. It leaves tomorrow.
Intercut with.
Decarius races out of Camulodunum on his horse. The gates close behind him. Intercut with.
Scenes of Icenium, desolate and empty.
You have seen the hands of our gamekeeper, mangled by the iron of a Roman nail. And now you see the scars on my mother's back, wrought by the hand of a Roman whip.
Intercut with.
Decarius is surrounded.
And where are you headed, soldier?
I have a letter to deliver, sir.
Decarius hands over the letter.
It has a tribune's seal.
Decarius nods. Intercut with.
Jacomus smiles warmly and claps Decarius on the back. Then, speaking so low that Decarius has to lean in to hear him.
If you're lying to me.
The threat is clear. Intercut with.
Through the darkness that blankets the land, we can make out a long meandering road only by the mass of flaming orange that crawls, ant-like, along it, consuming the path ahead, engulfing it in flame.
If you came only to stare at a queen broken by Rome, then you may as well leave right now.
Before the marching body of flame and rage, we surge forward, the heat of the torches curving our way to see Aeronwen at the head of the army, leading her people in a column of flame that will leave only ashes behind.
Rome has disgraced itself, and together we can show them just how fucking wrong they were.
We are driven forward to take in the determined expression on Aeronwen's face. We focus on the blue of her eyes and the reflected flame that flickers there, echoing the flame that burns inside her heat, her drive and her desire for revenge, snap to black.
Titles. Boudica, Flame of the Iceni. Episode, Choices, Part 2. Snap out, fade in.
Exterior, open road, night. Around a dwindling fire, the scouting group of legionaries rest and sleep. Decarius sits in their midst, awake and alert, trying and failing to look calm and relaxed. A dark-skinned soldier next to him offers him some wine. He accepts, not wanting to offend the man, who, seeing him drink, eventually smiles at him. His name is Mahabaro. He is the first watch of this evening.
Where are you from, Decarius? Where are you from? You're not Roman.
Nor you.
True. Rome swallows all, but are any of her citizens truly Roman?
He drinks. Trying to avoid speaking about himself, Decarius decides to engage Mahabaro in conversation about his descent and origin.
You don't bear yourself like a soldier. Forgive me, it's not a slight. You have I don't know, a quality I've seen in men of standing, of royalty even.
You have a good eye. My noble cousin was King Ptolemy of Mauritania, son of King Juba and Queen Cleopatra Selene.
Decarius stares at Mahabaro for several moments, trying to judge whether this claim can be true.
Ptolemy of Mauritania?
Mahabaro nods.
The grandson of General Marcus Antonius and Queen Cleopatra Philopata?
Mahabaro flashes a smile and drinks once more.
You know my history, my friend.
He offers Decarius the skin. He accepts it more readily this time.
A Roman education.
Mahabaro laughs. Jacomus begins to stir.
What happened?
Life and death.
Silence. They press the drink back and forth.
Ptolemy was murdered in Rome. Emperor Jacomus, or Caligula as the people named him, he was responsible, but of course it was denied at the time. My people revolted against the treachery without success, but soon enough, even Rome had had enough of the man named Little Boots.
Decarius nods. Mahabaro drinks.
How did you end up here?
Paulinus.
It was he who led the Roman forces against the uprising, who murdered and enslaved my kin. He made me an offer, my life to be spent in the service and protection of Rome and her allies, or my death there and then. I chose life for what it's worth.
The statement settles heavily upon Decarius, who considers his own life and choices. He drinks. Decarius decides to gamble.
Mahabro, I need to leave. I need...
Jacomus descends upon the pair.
Evening, lad.
Centurion Jacomus.
Mahabro, trying to convince you there's royal blood in the veins of his. Any left in that?
Decarius passes it across to Jacomus. He drinks.
I've been thinking all night, and I'm not a great thinker, which is probably why I'm still saddled with this sorry lot. But I was thinking about your story, Decarius.
My story?
About delivering a letter.
What about it?
I just have a sneaking suspicion that it is just that. A story.
Seemingly from nowhere, a soldier grabs hold of Decarius around his shoulders, pinning his arms at his side. Jacomus swoops in and takes the letter from within Decarius's tunic. Decarius struggles and protests, but it is in vain. Jacomus turns the letter over and over in his hands. Cut to.
Area Catus Decianus' house, bedroom before morning. Sabina is awake, laying in her bed. She may not have slept at all. This is the first night she's been without the comfort of knowing that Decianus, Decarius, or some other form of security is in place in the house. She feels completely exposed and unnerved. She looks out of the window at the ever-lightening sky, then settles herself down in the bed once more, but does not close her eyes. After a moment she hears something, somewhere in the house. She sits bolt upright. There is a second noise, like that of a kitchen door latch. Throwing back the covers, she pulls a sheer robe around her shoulders and heads out of the empty bedroom. Follow.
She moves quickly through the house to arrive in the kitchen as Stepanides is closing and locking the door once more. Follow.
Interior kitchen, continuous. A young slave in his teens is standing before Stepanides, looking apologetic. He jumps as his eyes light on Sabina.
Domina! Forgive me, Domina. I did not mean to disturb your rest.
Rest? What rest?
Judging by the tension in the room, Sabina knows all is not well.
What is it?
Ship, Domina. The ship is gone.
What do you mean it's gone?
He says it set sail in the night.
What? Why?
People are afraid, Domina. The captain gave me this. It was the money for your passage to Gaul.
Oh, I don't care about the money. What happened?
He said he couldn't wait. I asked him to hold on while I came to you, but he threw the purse at me and said he wouldn't wait. That it wasn't worth his life, that rebellion always swallowed...
Oh, hold on. Rebellion? What rebellion?
Domina?
Sabina considers the slave for a moment. He seems terrified, not knowing where to begin.
That purse is yours, and all its contents, if you tell me, truthfully, what is happening. What is it that scared the captain so?
Cut to.
Exterior. Open road, early morning. As before. The sky is beginning to lighten. Decarius has now been bound, his hands tied before him. Jacomus turns the letter over and over in his hands before placing it down near his kit. Mahabro sits a little way off from Decarius, watching the exchange.
Where did you receive this letter?
Decarius knows his only hope is to stick as closely to the truth as possible.
Camulodunum, sir.
And your instructions were?
Classified, sir.
You said that before. But here's my quandary. This document, which does bear a tribunate seal, also has your name scrawled across it.
Decarius tries to speak, but is cut down by Jacomus.
Silence. I know what you will say. You will tell me that multiple copies have been made of this same message and sent out with different riders in the hopes that at least one will reach its destination, yes? You will tell me that this one is inscribed with your name because it's the copy that was handed to you, and that other copies will bear the names of the other messages, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that is how it should be. But something just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Decarius holds Jacomus' steady gaze, despite the dread fear now coursing through him.
This road runs from Camulodunum to Venter Iceni. There are no forts along this route. There are no other Roman towns, no strongholds, nothing. Your destination can only be Iceni, in which case I cannot imagine who the recipient might be. But I'm only a centurion, and not paid for my imaginative skills, it's true.
Jacomus pauses, watching Decarius. To his credit, he remains stock still.
But what troubles me the most is that the seal belongs to Gnaeus Julius Agricola. He's one of ours, proud tribune to the second Augusta. And he's been reassigned to Paulinus' staff, for reasons I don't really know. And he's currently leading the advance against the Druids to the west of this godforsaken shithole.
I don't know anything about that, sir. I just...
Hush, lad. You'll have your chance to talk. And believe me, you will talk. Now, my problem with this whole situation has to do with terrain. With the route that this document will have had to travel this far just to reach you. Here, let me show you.
Taking up a stick, Jacomus stamps out the dwindling embers of the fire and begins to draw in the ashes. He quickly sketches out the main body of Britannia and the island of Mona, Anglesey, in the upper left portion. He adds indentations to represent Diva, Chester, in the northwest of the drawing, Camulodunum, Colchester, in the southeast, and Venter Iceni, Castus St. Edmund, above Camulodunum in the east. As he continues to speak, he traces the stick across the ground, referring to his map.
Whether Tribune Agricola was at Diva, or even in the island of Mona itself when he sent out this document with its first rider, he will have wanted to reach its destination as swiftly as possible. But you are asking me to believe that he sent it first to Camulodunum, here, where you picked it up and have since set out to deliver it somewhere near Venter Iceni up here. Can you see now that that makes no sense? Can you understand my sense of conflict, my unease? Besides all this is the fact that you have no bag with you, no kit whatsoever. You have a water skin, yes, and there may be a plausible reason for all the rest, but I can't be certain. Finally, and forgive me, but you have a distinctly tribal look about you. A local look, you know what I mean? How do I know that you're not some spy for the traitor Caractacus? Or... I believe your tale, Decarius, really I do. Give me something more than confidential to work with. Give me something I can believe.
Decarius does not respond, but simply holds Jacomus's gaze. Jacomus gestures to his men, and they haul Decarius to his feet. Then he prods the point of the stick he sketched out his map with into Decarius's abdomen.
Have you ever seen a stick being driven through a man, Decarius? It's not a pretty sight. Takes a long time, an awfully long time.
He locks eyes with Decarius, who is both terrified and resolute. Jacomus gives a nod, and the soldiers holding Decarius begin to untie his hands, but they do not let him go. Instead, they begin stripping him of his shirt, tunic, and upper layers.
Jacomus!
The trick is to find a suitably soft spot to begin. You don't want to come up against any bone or cartilage if you can help it. It spoils the twist. You've got to get a good twist going.
Having made short work of his garments, two of the soldiers hold on to the ropes that bond each of Decarius' wrists, while a third now stands himself behind Decarius, his hand on his shoulder, ready to hold him in place. The two with the rope step back, stretching out Decarius' arms. Mahabaro watches silently, his face unreadable.
Jacomus, I don't know why Agricola chose this route. I don't question the orders I am given. It would earn me a beating or worse. You know that. I didn't question my orders. The soldiers of Rome do not question their orders. I just followed them.
Perhaps. Or perhaps you are a deserter. The auxiliary forces attached to the 20th are already with Paulinus, with Agricola. So why were you in Camulodunum?
You wouldn't believe me.
No, probably not.
As Jacomus prepares to start forcing the dull point of the stick through the area above Decarius' kidney, Mahabaro stands and holds up the sealed document.
Sir, we should check this. See if the story checks out.
You are joking, aren't you? Do you know the punishment for intercepting and opening a message meant for a senior officer?
You would prefer to kill the man who carries it?
To discover the truth, yes. And if his tale holds up, I will deliver the letter myself and make my apologies for this unfortunate business. Hold him.
Jacomus readies himself to begin the torture. Decarius braces himself.
Wait, sir, wait! I will open it. I will take responsibility.
You? Then you believe his story?
I believe he believes it, sir. I can see that he's a man with a mission. I believe him enough to risk breaking a tribune's seal.
Jacomus lowers the stick and considers this for a moment.
All right. Prince Mahabara, on your head be it.
Decarius can do nothing but watch and wait, feeling his fate be sealed already. All eyes turn to regard Mahabara as he slowly turns the letter over and, sliding his finger underneath the seal, opens it up. All present seem to hold their breath. Mahabara's eyes widen as he scans the information contained within the letter.
Well?
Mahabara looks up from the letter, his eyes finding those of Decarius. Decarius gives nothing away. Mahabara gives a resolute nod.
He speaks the truth.
Jacomus is beyond surprised by this result. He's almost outraged. He was sure he had made the right call.
You're certain?
Do you question my honour, sir?
Jacomus is about to answer when an arrow skewers the throat of the soldier to Decarius' right. In wide-eyed terror, the soldier reacts, even as Jacomus shouts over a surge of noise and tribal calls.
Take cover, lads!
All of the soldiers hit the ground, scrambling to take cover and grab their gladii as a flurry of arrows rain down.
Shit, they're in the scrub!
Even as Jacomus tries to organise a small band of legionaries, a scouting party of 15 Trinovantes and Iceni warriors appear from the surrounding cover and descend upon the Roman force with merciless haste. A brief fight ensues, in which 2 more soldiers are killed. Decarius, the rope still around his wrists, takes up the gladius of a fallen legionary, defending himself even as Jacomus is cut down. Mahabara is injured but continues to fight, cutting down several warriors that get too close. Decarius and Mahabara are surrounded and stand back, preparing to fight and die when a voice calls a halt.
Wait. Stand down.
The conjoined band of warriors lower their weapons but remain focused and ever ready. Tyro strides into the centre of the circle.
I thought it was you. Down your weapons.
Mahabara and Decarius exchange looks. Decarius nods and they both comply.
Tyro.
Tyro enjoys the moment, taking in Decarius' recognition of him before the warriors under his command. Mahabara keeps a cautious eye on the group surrounding them.
What are you doing here?
Decarius looks at Mahabara with apology, wondering where to begin. Tyro questions him silently once more.
I needed to know if
it was true.
Decarius nods. Mahabara falters a little, revealing a wound that is deeper than he first anticipated. He stumbles back into Decarius, who catches him and lowers him to the ground.
Mahabara.
Decarius cradles him, trying to assess the wound.
He needs help.
Does he?
Tyro!
Trinovantes' warrior named Finn steps forward, his spear readied.
He took the lives of 2 of my men. I'd be happy to repay the favour.
No! No!
Tyro shrugs and Finn moves in to execute Mahabara. Before he can, Decarius takes up Mahabara's sword, he parries the spear point and is on his feet in a heartbeat.
Really?
Decarius.
There are grumblings from the men around the circle as both Decarius and Finn take each other in, unmoving. Mahabara coughs and calls out to Decarius.
Don't, my friends. You have a message to deliver.
Decarius drops the sword and returns to Mahabara.
I'm not a messenger.
Oh, but you are.
You read the letter. You know that
I read the words. They will bring you no joy. I'm sorry, my friend.
Without warning, bored with their exchange, Finn steps forward and plunges the tip of his spear through Mahabara's heart. The light goes from his eyes. Decarius jumps up in a rage.
No!
Taking up the sword once more, he descends upon Finn with a fury. Finn struggles to stave him off, his spear only good for holding back the blows that rain down on him from Decarius' sword. Eventually losing the ground and his footing, Finn falls. Decarius stamps on Finn's wrists. He releases his grip on the spear. Taking hold of him by the collar, Decarius presses the point of the gladius to Finn's throat. Around him, the warriors angle the spears at Decarius.
Halt!
The warriors respond, but remain poised.
Decarius.
You didn't have to do that.
I wanted to. He was going to die anyway. Would you throw your life away for the memory of this Roman dog?
He wasn't fucking Roman!
For a moment, it seems that Decarius will push the blade through Finn's throat regardless. Then, suddenly, he throws down the sword. He walks the length of the human fence and back again, like a caged animal. He releases a cry of frustration, sorrow, and impotent rage. Finn sneers at this.
Prince! Stolen from his home, forced into this after his people!
Decarius wipes his face. He doesn't know when the tears began to fall. He moves to pick up his letter. He still does not read it, but puts it away before coming face to face with Tyro.
I need to speak with Aeronwen.
Around the circle, those who had their spears aimed at Decarius falter at his familiar use of her name. Silence.
The Queen and her army are following. Find him and bring him with us.
With a look of disbelief, Decarius pulls his shirt back on before being bound with the ropes that tied him earlier. Decarius takes a final look at Mahabra's body.
Where does it end?
This is just the beginning.
Decarius is led off by the warriors, who fall into a formation. Finn halts Tero.
Our orders were no survivors.
Decarius is different.
See?
He is one of ours.
Cut 2.
Exterior, the Pie Road, early morning. Aeronwen walks at the head of her army, who are chanting and singing and are generally in good spirits as they make toward Camulodunum. Intercut with
Tero's scouting group, further along the road, stop in the cover of woodland near to Camulodunum. They watch the main gate, the comings and goings of townfolk. Decarius has now also been gagged. He indicates to Tyro, who reluctantly approaches him. Drawing a dagger and holding it to Decarius' throat, Tyro dislodges the gag.
What?
Thought we would join in Aeronwen.
She'll be here soon enough. With 100,000 warriors at her back.
Decarius looks and recoils. Can this be true? His eyes move from Tyro to the main gate of Camulodunum in abject horror. He has friends and loved ones inside.
No. Tyro. No.
Don't make me cut your throat, Decarius. I vouched for you. It's time for you to decide where your loyalties lie.
Decarius' eyes flick back to the walls of the town he knows so well. Tyro shakes his head, stuffing the gag back into Decarius' mouth and securing it.
Sorry. I am sorry.
Tyro is not speaking of the here and now, and Decarius knows this, but he can neither make a response nor think past the destruction that will befall Camulodunum before night. Decarius' eyes are wide and focused entirely on the town as Finn brings down the flat edge of a rock to connect with Decarius' head. He falls unconscious to the ground. Cut to.
Exterior, Camulodunum town, early morning. Now dressed, Sabina moves through the town, heading toward Rufus's shop. Follow.
Exterior, Camulodunum town, Rufus Bakery, moments later. Sabina approaches the shop, calling out to Rufus, who is opening it.
Rufus!
Good morning, Sabina. You're eager, aren't you? It's not like you to... What's wrong?
Rufus, the ship has sailed already. It's gone.
What? You're certain?
The captain returned the money Decarius had paid.
Now hold on a moment.
Even as Rufus tries to comfort Sabina, the alarm bell begins to ring. There are shouts from the sentries on the walls. Whistles blow and there are calls to close the gate. Rufus looks up, still holding on to Sabina, trying to make sense of the situation. Immediately, the training of his former life kicks in. He looks down the Via Principia towards the main gate. Angle on, the main gate being shut.
Wait here.
Rufus takes off at a sprint towards the main gate. Disregarding his instructions, Sabina follows behind. Follow.
Exterior, Camulodunum, the main gate, continuous. Rufus arrives just as the main gate is locked and secured. We hear the echo of the other gates being closed and secured around the town. Rufus addresses the junior centurion at the gate.
What's going on?
Rebels. Approaching from the north.
Rufus indicates to the wall, and the junior centurion nods, allowing the ex-soldier access to survey the approaching horde. Rufus is astounded by the sight that greets him. This is not some small-scale rebel force. We look out to take in Rufus's point of view. Though still at a distance, the mass of people approaching appear to be a never-ending stream that stretches back as far as the eye can see.
That's not rebels. That's a fucking army.
Sabina looks up to Rufus.
What is it? Rufus? What?
Go back to your house, Sabina. Now. Lock the doors. Bar them. Admit no one.
He looks back out at the army.
And pray.
Cut to.
Exterior, Camulodunum, the Temple of Claudius, afternoon. A small force of citizens has congregated before the Temple of Claudius. They are all the men, retired soldiers like Rufus, and boys of fighting age that Camulodunum has to offer, and number maybe 300 at most. Many of the men have dug out their old military kit, mail or padded shirts, gladii and the like. A few even have their old scooter, though many do not. The younger members of this ragtag force, the defenders of Camulodunum, are armed with an array of creative homemade weapons, including table legs with long nails driven through them, crude cudgels, skewers attached to lengths of wood to make a sort of spear, kitchen knives, butcher's axes, etc. They are joined by the 2 sentries that have been left behind simply to keep order in the town, a force of almost 200 legionaries. While the junior centurion may officially be the highest ranking officer in absence of any other, he is deferred to Rufus and his seniority in tactical experience under the circumstances. Rufus now addresses the crowd, who grumble their agreement throughout.
My friends, you will have all heard, and many of you will have seen yourselves, the horde of rebel tribesmen approaching Camulodunum. Their intentions are clear. They do not come to parley with us, or to speak with us, or to air their grievances in any other terms than in blood.
He allows his words to sink in.
We must defend this town, our home, for our wives and our daughters, for our mothers and our unborn sons.
A voice calls out from a young father in the crowd.
We should evacuate them from the east gate.
Several voices join in agreement of this idea. Rufus allows the crowd to settle, sadness in his voice for the young father and for them all.
And what then? They would be hunted like animals, sport for the wolves at our door. They will have had scout teams watching the gates through the night, and looking at their numbers, they'll have had teams to spare. No, a time when we might have run has passed. We must hold out and wait for our boys to return. For the 2nd or 9th, or the 14th, even the 20th if we must. And we can hold. We have 2 sentries with us, and the strength of these walls, and plenty of missiles to hurl down upon our enemy.
Rufus's eyes light firstly on a crumbling statue of Minerva in the centre of the street, then on an older man.
That broken fountain, Septimus, that you've been campaigning to rebuild, might just have saved some lives today.
You would break apart the fountain of Minerva and use it as ammunition.
I think the goddess would approve, don't you?
I think his agreement. He is joined by others.
We have food and water, and we can withstand a siege. If we can just get through today.
The crowd begin to cheer.
We are men of the Roman army.
The cheers grow.
The greatest fucking army in the world. We are brothers of the 14th and the 2nd and the 9th, and we will not lose hope. When Arminius's forces surrounded us in the depths of Germania, did we lose hope? When they closed in on us, did we give up? Did we surrender?
No!
Rufus's questions are greeted by the resounding cheers of no, followed by a low chanting of
Roma, 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 Victrix!
That's right. Let the women here. They will be safe within the temple, and
the crowd rumbles in agreement. Then from the back we hear the voice of Epelina.
And what about those who can fight?
The men turn to see a fearsome-looking group of women stood behind them.
Epelina.
As she speaks, Epelina begins to press through the crowd amidst mutterings of the men until she reaches Rufus.
What about us? The sisters and the daughters and the mothers, and those of us who chose to marry the greatest fucking army in the world. Do you expect us to turn and hide? Because if you think for 1 minute that...
Rufus kisses Epelina, silencing her.
My wife, brothers. And some of yours too, by the looks of it. I know that our traditions dictate. Well, I'm no philosopher or man of great book learning, but what do you say, Septimus?
I would say that today is not a day for tradition, but rather for preservation. And if to preserve our traditions and indeed our lives we must deviate from the path of our ancestors, then deviate we must. Live today so that tomorrow we may carve a new path back to the old ways. Roma!
All around, the crowd take up the rally.
Roma! 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 Victrix!
Rufus smiles and kisses Epelina once again.
I love you, Epelina Calpurnia. I always have.
She smiles a broad and loving smile, tapping his jaw.
You need a shave.
Rufus laughs heartily as the crowd disperses, each with jobs to do. Cut to.
Exterior, beyond the walls of Camulodunum, afternoon. The Iceni and the allies have set up a perimeter around the walled town with a camp beyond. The sun is high and the air is filled with the smells of roasting meat and bread and ale. There is a strange sense of calm and routine to all of this, the feeling of a festival before the stages open. Aeronwen moves through the camp, taking in all the sights and sounds, greeting and speaking with the various pockets of men and women who gather to eat and drink together, as though nothing tumultuous were about to take place. Boudica watches her daughter from a distance, nodding to herself, pleased with Aeronwen's approach to the leadership that has been thrust upon her. Jodak calls her attention back to maps they have laid out on a table, and she turns her gaze from Aeronwen, who steps inside a large tent. Cut to.
Interior infirmary tent continuous. Inside, Aeronwen takes in a breath. Slaves and novices move around, each with their own tasks to attend.
It's hot in here. No air.
She makes her way over to Thusnelda, who is tending Branwen, still in bed, still unable to wake. Worryingly, she no longer moves about and is almost deathly still. She is pale, her skin clammy. Aeronwen's eyes widen. Her sister looks so much like her father did in his final minutes.
Is she...
Thusnelda shakes her head, smiling weakly at Aeronwen.
She's still fighting.
Aeronwen is suddenly angry once more, resolute.
Then we shall fight too.
With that, she turns and exits the tent. Follow.
Exterior, the infirmary tent, continuous. In her absolute focus, Aeronwen walks straight past a small cage set next to the tent. It is designed for the transportation of small to medium livestock, though its current occupant is Decarius. Stirring groggily and still bound and gagged, he does not see Aeronwen until it is too late. By the time he tries to make any sound, she is already too far gone to hear or listen to his pleas. Follow.
Exterior, beyond the walls of Camulodunum, continuous. Aeronwen reaches her mother and Jodak.
It's time.
Boudica nods. Cut to.
Exterior, Camulodunum, the main gate, moments later. A mixture of legionaries and retired soldiers line the walls that run around Camulodunum. They have too few archers but plenty of rocks and other ammo that they can throw down upon their enemy, as well as hot oil and boiling water. Rufus is playing the part of the general, moving along the walls and boosting morale. Anxious chatter and the occasional burst of laughter run about the walls, though it fades away quickly. Without warning, the low, bellowing sound of a war horn calls out somewhere beyond the walls. It is soon joined by the answer of other horns that, from the placement of the sound, reveal the true extent of just how very many surround the town Rufus moves to take his place, calling as he goes.
This is it. Stand fast. Knock any ladders from the walls. Rain down hell on the bastards. And do not fall back. Brace the gates and defend the walls, and we might just get through this.
To his right, a legionary nods. To his left, Epolina smiles and nods. Her grin, still as determined and ruthless as it was during the rally, renews his confidence. He squeezes her hand and kisses it. Looking back to the soldier on his right, Rufus notices a young boy a little further along the ranks. It is the boy that Decarius had sought, the boy who had delivered the letters. Seeming to feel Rufus's gaze, the boy turns to look at him and grins, holding her small homemade slingshot. The weapon is loaded, and at his feet stand several baskets of mortar. Sadly, yet brimming with pride, Rufus nods at the urchin, raising his gladius in a salute to him. Beaming, the boy turns his attention to the ever-closing sound of the united tribes. Cut to.
The walls of Camulodunum, exterior continuous. Aeronwen's army begins to storm the walls of the town, besieging it on all sides. Intercut with.
Exterior, the walls of Camulodunum. Interior, continuous. Ladders and ropes are thrown up with a ferocious speed, though the townsfolk and soldiers are efficient in their task to hold them back. A soldier looks over the edge of the wall. Follow point of view.
Exterior, the walls of Camulodunum, exterior continuous. Warriors race up the ladders and ropes towards the soldiers. It is terrifying. Further along, we see ladders clattering to the ground, sending the tribal warriors hurtling towards injury and death. Some crash into comrades, but more and more we see that the seemingly endless tide of warriors are becoming more efficient at bracing the ladders against the futile Roman resistance. We spin back up in time to see the soldier whose POV we shared look back down the ladder in horror, failing to react quickly enough as a wiry young Trinovanti skewers him through the skull with his spear. Air gurgles from the bloody wound as the warrior on the ladder pulls on his spear, trying to free it. A sharp piece of shrapnel suddenly connects with his eye socket, exploding in a fountain of blood and rubble and gore. The warrior releases his grip and falls to his death, the body of the speared soldier following him over the edge. Warriors further down try to dodge these fleshy obstacles, clinging onto the ladder. Intercut with.
Further along the walls, Rufus is arms deep in the fighting. His sword already bloody, he is concentrating on a 3-meter area, making his way back and forth and cutting enemies down. After a moment, he risks a glance over the edge. There are so many ladders and ropes, all of them laden with warriors making short work of the distance. Pulling back and narrowly avoiding the death blow of a warhammer, he drags the hairy warrior over the wall and stabs him, efficient as his training taught. Remaining tucked down, he takes a moment to whisper thanks to Mars and Fortuna. Then, straightening, he calls out along to those on his section of the wall.
Oil!
The shout is taken up by others and passed around the walls. Whistles also blow out to signal the command. All around the walls, buckets and buckets of hot oil are upended and thrown out over the warriors climbing up the ladders. The shrieks and screams of agony are instantaneous and many, intercut with.
Seeing this from a commanding vantage point and feeling the need to act, Aeronwen surges forward, but Boudica takes hold of her arm, shaking her head. Aeronwen watches in horror as the Romans' use of flaming torches to set alight the oil-slick ladders. Even as their comrades fall, burned by oil and blistered by fire, the warriors, prepared for this action, make a human chain, passing buckets of water along to douse the flames and wash away the oil.
We had already soaked the ladders in water. So long as the oil is washed away, they shouldn't burn.
But our people are burning.
Yes.
Aeronwen stares at her mother in horror. Boudica continues to survey the siege. Eventually, her gaze returns to Aeronwen.
It is a part of siege warfare. Our people know all too well what the Roman dogs are capable of. We were prepared for this.
I was not.
Aeronwen follows her mother's gaze and takes in the horrors of the siege once more. Suddenly, there's a loud resounding thump and crunch, the sound of wood on wood. Aeronwen looks to see a massive felled tree being used as a battering ram at the main gate. Intercut with.
At the main gate, the tribal battering force continue to rhythmically bound the wooden barrier. Upon closer inspection, we can see that the felled tree is covered with a layer of soaked skins and tarpaulins to protect it from the oil-fire combination. Though this does not protect the warriors manning the machine, who scatter and dodge as the oil is thrown down. Some dodge more successfully than others. Some are crushed by the battering ram as it is dropped in haste. Again, screams and shrieks, blood and gore, and shattered, protruding bones. New team members replace the fallen, and the battering continues. Additional clash thud sounds indicate that the other gates are also being besieged. Cut to
Exterior Camulodunum, the main gate, during the chaos. Rufus arrives at the main gate to assess the damage. It's holding, for now. He turns to a wide-eyed legionary.
Check the other gate. Go!
The legionary jumps and runs off, following instruction.
Please, Mars. You always looked out for me in battle. Thought it made me special. I know I'm not special. But if you can see fit to look out for Epelina this time, I will see that a bull is sacrificed in your honour.
Rufus runs up the stone steps, returning to the fighting. He kills several warriors and throws another back over the walls, but more and more are spilling onto the platform. They are like ants. He continues to kill and pause as he proceeds with his prayer.
Let me worry about the logistics of the situation, and of actually finding a bull in this fucking hellhole. I will do it, I swear. But please, Mars Altar, if you can save any one life, let it be hers. Okay, and that fucking boy too. And Sabina Looper. And maybe if you're feeling gracious, not that you're gracious, you might smile upon me too. Sorry, that was not meant to be a great list, Great Mars. If Fortuna sees fit to also support you in keeping us alive, I will triple my offering to you both. Thank you.
Rufus surges forward, throwing himself into fight after fight. Cut to
Exterior Camulodunum, near the east gate, moments later. The young legionary that had left Rufus at the main gate has now reached the east gate. The pounding from outside is relentless, and while the gate creaks and moves, it seems to be holding. He scans the walls to judge how well they are holding out, and can do nothing but stare in abject horror as a throng of warriors suddenly spill over the wall and overwhelm the soldiers there. He turns his head to call out for reinforcements, but finds that the same is happening at the same spot above the east gate. As he turns his attention back to the original breach, he comes face to face with a leering, woad-faced female warrior. Before he even has time to comprehend that the warrior is female, she snaps his neck. Intercut with.
the female warrior and others race towards the east gate to join their comrades in slaughtering the soldiers there. Intercut with. The legionaries at the east gate fight and die.
Intercut with. Hearing the mechanism beginning to move on the inside, the tribal warriors beyond the east gate pause in their bombardment. In the next moment, the gate is hauled open. A great cheer erupts from the waiting warriors as they spill inside the town. Intercut with.
Near the main gate. All around Rufus, men and women pause, turning their heads in the direction of the sound. The boy pauses reloading his slingshot.
What's that?
They're inside.
Intercut with.
Aeronwen and Boudica mount their horses and set off towards the main gate. Intercut with.
Tribal warriors spill through the streets, encountering little resistance. Every person, soldier or citizen, armed or unarmed, is cut down by the swarm. Some try to run and hide. They do not get far. Intercut with.
Doors are kicked in and people are dragged out into the street and murdered. Windows are smashed and homes and businesses are looted. Intercut with.
Rufus takes hold of Epelina and the boy.
Get to the Temple of Claudius.
Epelina opens her mouth to speak, but Rufus holds up his hand.
For once, don't argue with me, Epelina.
Her eyes filling with tears.
For once, I wasn't going to.
She takes hold of Rufus's face and kisses him, even as a tear escapes her. Pulling back, but still holding her, Rufus wipes the tear away with his thumb.
I thought I needed a shave.
You do. I realise that I don't mind.
Close to breaking himself, Rufus kisses Epelina once more, then takes a step back.
Go. I'll be right behind you. Take care of her, boy.
I will, sir.
As the pair move off, Rufus calls to them.
And when this is done, see that you make a sacrifice to Mars and to Fortuna. 3 bulls.
Yes, sir. 3 bulls.
Bulls! Now go.
They've already rounded the corner.
Please. Fall back to the temple. Ordered retreat. Maintain discipline. In formation. Besides me now.
His words do little to quell the chaos. There were bands of about 20 men fall in around him, 5 men wide and 4 deep. Intercut with.
More of the same awful, brutal carnage. Intercut with.
the infirmary tent, during the chaos. Branwen begins to stir. Thusnelda looks over at her. She cries out in her restless sleep and begins to convulse violently. Reacting, Thusnelda turns her onto her side and tries to calm her. The next few intercut sections pick up speed as the afternoon spirals out of control, bleeding into the evening into night.
Exterior, Camulodunum, town, afternoon. Fire breaks out in a stable. The horses cry. A stable hand runs inside to cut them loose. The horses run out into the street without regard. The stable hand tries to follow and is cut down at the door by a warrior. Intercut with.
Aeronwen dismounts, handing her horse's rein to someone, staring ahead at the main gate. She feels a hand on hers and looks to find that it belongs to Merla. As before, it is Merla that has come to care for Aeronwen's horse. The pair exchange a look, concern showing on Merla's face, before she leads the horse away from battle. Aeronwen, one amongst many, turns back to the main gate as it gives way. The tribal army flood through the gate. Aeronwen is with them, intercut with.
In the thick of the fighting, Aeronwen cuts down the soldiers that stand in her way. Intercut with.
Rufus and his team have formed a defensive ring around the Temple of Claudius and are doing their best to defend it. Intercut with.
Still moving through the town, street by street, Aeronwen is now caught up and even enjoying the fight, attacking every soldier with a ferocity and relish that is almost demonic. Intercut with.
Fire, carnage, chaos. Intercut with.
Interior, the infirmary tent, early evening. Branwen turns and sits bolt upright in her bed. Her eyes are still closed and the lids flutter as she begins to speak rapidly.
Mae hi wedi dod. Mae hi wedi dod ac yma ac yn awr mae'r amser yn rhyfel. A bydd yn rhyfel. A bydd rhyfel yn amgylch yn y cyfan. Ac mae'r diniwed sial yn darfod gyda'r cryf. A byd y cedyn yn cwympo.
Intercut with.
Now nearing the Temple of Claudius, Aeronwen continues to strike down soldiers, left, right, and centre. But she also begins to notice the brutal, savage acts being committed by her army to innocent civilians.
Mae yn droste yn cyfed yn ein plith. Esgyn ac yn ywgrian. Mae yn droste yma. Mae yn droste wedi dod I Camulodunum ac ni al hedych fydd deynasi yma. Mae yn droste wedi dod a bydd distawrwydd yn cwympo. Dim ond pan fydd hi'n cysgu.
Aeronwen turns to see one of her warriors drag a young woman into an abandoned shop. She follows him inside in time to see him throw the woman to the ground and begin to untie his trousers. An all-encompassing rage floods through Aeronwen, and without a second thought, she runs at the man, grappling him from behind. She knocks him to the ground and sat on top of him, pinning him. She grabs his hair and slams his face into the stone floor again and again and again, until her own knuckles are bloody from where they are now hitting the stone.
Henfichwech andraste. Mam ryfel. Brehines Iceni. Carnage teg wedi ei aileni. Andraste. Aeronwen. Brehines Aeronwen. Boudica flam o'r Iceni. Ilwydreithi. I goncro, I Circia, heb gladwyni, heb quip, heb blentyn. Andraste yn dod.
Intercut with.
Branwen sat up in bed.
Chosgi trwy y cyfan. Andraste.
She falls back down into the bed, unconscious once more. Intercut with.
Aeronwen stares at her hands, covered in blood and gore and matted hair. She looks over to the woman who stares at her in terror.
Do you have a knife?
The woman shakes her head. Aeronwen takes the dagger from the dead warrior's thigh brace. She stands and slowly makes her way towards the woman. She holds it out to the woman, handle first. The woman shakes her head again.
Take it and use it.
Eventually, the woman takes the handle, staring helplessly at it. Aeronwen indicates on herself, below her left breast. Without another word, she turns, dazed, and makes her way towards the street.
I can't.
Then you will suffer.
Will you help me?
Aeronwen turns to tell her that she cannot help her, but sees the woman is holding the handle out towards her. Aeronwen hesitates.
Please.
in between the ribs and up. Push up hard into the heart.
Aeronwen exits the shop, not knowing whether the woman had the courage to end her life or not. Follow.
She walks through the chaos and carnage that is setting in around her, turning this way and that, trying to avoid the sights and sounds when they become too much. It seems that no one has escaped. Men, women, boys, girls, dogs, cats, cattle, all are being slaughtered or worse. Fire is now also raging through the town as building after building is looted and set alight. Turning a corner, Aeronwen comes face to face with the sight of 3 young boys hanging from a beam, the light gone from their eyes. She is distraught by this sight. Aeronwen tracks around the side of a house to emerge at the front porticio of a place she recognises. It is the home of Catus Deciana and Sabina Lupa. The anger she feels for Deciana replaces all else.
Decianus.
Cut to.
Interior, Catus Decianus' house continuous. Aeronwen moves cautiously through the house, searching room after room, longing to find Catus Decianus and exact her revenge. Instead, she finds a ghost house, nothing like the opulent villa she visited less than a month earlier. The furniture has been packed away, and for a moment she believes it must be abandoned. Then, entering the tablinum, she is confronted by the bodies of the slaves that served her on the evening they visited. Here is the girl who served Dormouse. There is the girl who refilled the wine. Aeronwen begins to falter in her rage. Echoing through the room ahead, she hears voices, laughing and taunting. She approaches, following the sound. Follow.
Exterior peristyle garden of Decianus' house, continuous. Aeronwen emerges to see 5 young male warriors, Dulcus, Antolin, Persa, Mutas, and Andilico. They are drinking and laughing as they tease a slave, Stepanides, who is trying to defend his domina, Sabina Lupa. Flashback. As she steps into the garden, Aeronwen suddenly finds herself back in the Great Hall, surrounded by Junius, Osvaldus, Sophus, Velius, and Nixos. She stumbles, shakes her head, blinks, brings her bloodied hands to her face, rubs her face and her eyes, then stares at her hands. Flashback. For a moment, Aeronwen is back in the house with the now faceless warrior and the woman. Return. She blinks again, and looks around to take in the peristyle garden of Catus Decianus' townhouse once more. Her eyes adjust and find focus on those of Sabina Lupa.
Aeronwen?
Dulcus turns to see Aeronwen approaching.
Queen Aeronwen?
The 5 warriors turn and bend the knee, bowing their heads and acknowledging Aeronwen. Andilico doesn't bend the knee, instead, taking this opportunity to grab Stepanides and run him through with his sword. Andilico pulls free his sword, dropping Stepanides, who can do nothing but bleed out on the tiled floor. Andilico eventually turns, and bringing the bloodied sword across his body to salute, makes a half bow to Aeronwen, a deadly grin upon his face.
Queen Aeronwen.
What's going on here? Stand!
The warriors obey, looking at one another, none really wanting to answer her, but each knowing that they need to.
Well?
We were told we could drink when the fighting was done.
And is the fighting done?
I don't...
You don't what?
I don't know, my queen.
Then perhaps you'd better get back out there and find out.
Dulcus, Antolin, Persa and Mutas nod and mumble apologies, putting the drinks down and making to pick up their weapons. Andilico does not move. Aeronwen glares at him.
Perhaps you did not hear me.
I heard you.
Not liking his tone, but remaining patient and keeping her cool, Aeronwen approaches Andilico.
You are not Iceni.
No.
But you are here to fight. For me.
And I have spilled my share of Roman blood today. For you. Now, I will have my reward.
Andilico's eyes wander towards Sabina, who, while wanting to recoil, manages to stand tall, drawing in a breath. Aeronwen's jaw works as she struggles to control the rage bubbling once more inside her.
She is not your reward.
Dulcus, Antolin, Persa and Mutas watch the exchange, not quite knowing whether they should intervene or let things be.
Can anyone tell me who this woman is?
She's the wife of the procurator, Dedianus?
Decianus. Catus Decianus.
The
Aeronwen
highest ranking noblewoman in Camulodunum. And you believe you deserve such a prize?
You think I do not?
But have you killed more than any other today? Or planned more wisely, or fought more fearlessly?
Perhaps I have. But you mistake my meaning, Queen Aeronwen. I don't wish to be rewarded with this woman. I mean to take her. Here and now. Then I might give her to my friends, so that they too can enjoy her, before I slit her offensive Roman throat.
You will not.
She is, as you pointed out, Decianus's wife. The wife of the man responsible for all that happened. To you, to your mother, to your flamekeeper. And let's not forget your poor little sister. I thought you, of all people, would appreciate the justice of my idea. Why not stay with us? You might even enjoy it.
As he speaks, Andilico steps dangerously close to Aeronwen, speaking the last sentence into her ear at almost a whisper.
No.
Cut to.
Interior, the infirmary tent continuous. Branwen's eyes suddenly fly open. She sits up and looks around her, confused. She thought she was somewhere else entirely.
Aeronwen.
She pulls back the covers and moves from the bed. Thusnelda stares at her in absolute surprise. Cut to.
Exterior peristyle garden of Decianus' house, as before. Andilico is still far too close to Aeronwen. With a knee-jerk reaction, Aeronwen begins to draw a sword. Smiling down at her, Andilico is quick to react, holding onto Aeronwen's hands and pressing the sword back into its sheath. He seems to laugh at her, though he does not. With the use of her hands taken away, Aeronwen drives a knee up into Andilico's groin. As he staggers back, releasing his grip, she follows him, delivering a flat-footed kick to his abdomen, which sees him fall, doubly winded, to the floor. She draws her sword, thinking on her feet.
I claim this woman as my slave.
Never turning her back on Andilico, she addresses Dulcus, Antolin, Persa, and Mutas.
Do you hear me? I claim this woman as my slave, and as such, any harm that should befall her will be taken very personally by the Queen of the Iceni. Do you understand?
Dulcus, Antolin, Persa, and Mutas nod their agreement, even as Andilico climbs to his feet.
Object.
He moves his hand towards his sword.
Think very carefully before you commit this treason.
Drawing his sword.
I am not Iceni. You are not my queen.
Andilico!
You dare to draw your sword against me in the presence of warriors who have sworn an oath to protect me and do my bidding. An oath, I might add, which you also took.
Andilico leers at Aeronwen.
I never said the words. My people may have, but I never did. I'm not one for oaths.
Why are you here, Andilico?
To kill Romans, to drink their wine and fuck their women.
Aeronwen nods.
You are without honour.
Andilico shrugs. That may well be.
Leave. All of you.
But Queen Aeronwen...
Leave!
Dulcus, Antolin, Persa, and Mutas make their way swiftly out of the gardens and through the house. Cut to.
Exterior, Catus Decianus' house, moments later.
Lucas?
Find Agro.
Find Agro, and fast.
Cut to.
Interior peristyle garden of Decianus' house, as before. Andilico and Aeronwen circle one another, each testing the other for several moments before clashing properly. Each of them attacks or parries, feints and attacks once more, trying to gain the upper hand. Andilico grins, mocking Aeronwen.
This is. I'd really like to get round to fucking the Roman bitch now, so...
Andilico twists and trips Aeronwen, knocking her to the floor. She lands on her back, winded. Angelico steps on her sword arm and levels his own sword at her throat. He presses his weight onto her arm until...
I don't want to break your sword arm, but I will if you don't release it.
Reluctantly, she complies. Angelico bends to pick up her sword, then, sheathing his own sword, steps back, regarding hers.
Good. I don't want to end your life. A war against the Romans is far more rewarding than petty tribal warfare.
Angelico casts a quick glance at Sabina to check she has not moved. He licks his lips. With a speed and ferocity that seems to belie her condition, Aeronwen grabs a dagger from her boot. She slices through Angelico's Achilles tendon before rolling away out of his reach.
I told you. She is mine.
Angelico's immediate reaction is to clutch at the wound even as his legs give out, as he comes crashing to the ground. He drops Aeronwen's sword, but is still too close for her to reach it and grab it safely.
You fucking bitch!
Angelico swipes at her, trying to grab her. As he does, Aeronwen plunges the dagger through his forearm, driving the blade into the ground. He cries out in pain once more, even as Aeronwen climbs to her feet and moves to take up her sword. Leveling the point at his throat now, Aeronwen regards him for a moment.
Acknowledge me, Angelico. Acknowledge me, and I will send for a healer. I will have you carried back to our camp, and I will forget your lack of respect and the appalling manner in which you have conducted yourself today.
Angelico laughs, though it is a feeble sound. With great effort, he pulls together a ball of saliva and spits it at Aeronwen.
You are not my queen.
And you are not my friend.
Stepping back, Aeronwen swings her sword round in a great arc, bringing it down to connect with Angelico's neck, separating his head from his body. She shakes her head and moves to take up her dagger, which she wipes on his tunic, then sheaths it once more. Eventually, she turns to look at Sabina, who, it would seem, has not exhaled during the whole exchange between Aeronwen and Angelico. She stares at the bloody pool forming around Angelico's exposed spine.
Sabina? Sabina?
After a moment, Sabina seems to shake herself back into reality. She looks at Aeronwen, then back at Angelico, and finally settles her gaze on Aeronwen, meeting her eyes.
I am not your slave.
It takes a moment for the comment to register. Aeronwen could laugh at Sabina's pomposity if the situation was different.
That's it. After everything you've just witnessed, that's the first thing you choose to say to me.
Well, obviously I am grateful, of course.
You should be.
I am.
Shaking her head, Aeronwen turns from Sabina, pacing back and forth, the energy and adrenaline still pulsing through her. She rounds on Sabina.
I just saved your life. I saved you from degradation and death. Do you understand that? I have offered you a way out, alive. I have killed a man, a warrior, whose life and sword would have been of great use to me, despite his conduct here.
Aeronwen begins to look around her, and eventually approaching the body of Angelico. She opens the dead warrior's looting satchel, which is attached to his belt, and takes out a small length of rope.
Come here.
Me?
Yes, you!
Reluctantly, Sabina approaches Aeronwen, who immediately takes her hands and begins to bind them.
What are you doing?
Aeronwen does not answer.
Aeronwen, what are you doing?
We hear the sound of footsteps and voices from within the house. Aeronwen glares at Sabina for a moment before turning once more and drawing her sword. Agro enters the garden, followed by Dulcos and Persa. Seeing that it is Agro, Aeronwen sheathes her sword once more. He looks around, taking in the scene, concerned.
Aeronwen?
Aeronwen hands the now bound Sabina over to Dulcos and Persa.
Take this one to my compound. Keep her safe. No harm is to come to her. Do you understand? Keep my promises. Angelico will testify to that. Or would.
Yes, my queen.
Queen Aeronwen?
Nodding, Dulcos and Persa lead Sabina away. She begins to protest.
Gag her if you must, but otherwise no one is to lay a hand on her.
Aeronwen, what have you done?
What I needed to.
Cut to.
Exterior Camulodunum town, early evening. Intercut shots of the subsiding chaos that still sweeps through the town, street by street, but which has changed gear somewhat. Cut to.
Exterior, the camp, minutes later. Purser and Dulcus lead the now gagged Sabina through the camp. People stare and call out after them, aim names and jibes at Sabina, but no one approaches them. Both warriors look sick with nerves, more so than Sabina. When a lump of manure is hurled at her, hitting Sabina in the shoulder, Dulcus draws his sword.
This woman is a slave of Queen Aeronwen and must not be disrespected.
The child who threw the lump stares at Dulcus. His father takes his hand and spits upon the ground.
Moving.
They all do. Cut to.
Exterior, the camp, Aeronwen's compound some minutes later. Jodak is currently waiting, guarding the compound and planning strategies for the following days and weeks to come. Dulcus and Purser approach the compound with a gagged and bound Sabina in tow.
Sabina Lupa.
The two young warriors bow their heads briefly to Jodak.
Queen Aeronwen asked us to deliver this slave to her compound.
She said no harm was to come to her.
Jodak takes the rope from Dulcus.
Thank you, both. I will speak highly of your conduct when the Queen returns.
Smiling and relieved to be rid of their charge, the pair head off to their area of the camp. Jodak regards Sabina for a moment, then indicates to the gag.
Lady Sabina, you won't bite me if I try to loosen this thing, will you?
Sabina shakes her head. As Jodak releases his hands, Sabina sees his injuries. He struggles, but eventually undoes the gag. He exhales, somewhat exhausted.
What happened to your hands?
I think you know.
I've heard rumours.
A great sob escapes Sabina as the reality of all that has occurred that day suddenly washes over her. She feels that she might drown.
Come and sit down. Let me get you some water and we can start with what you have heard.
She shakes her head, still sobbing, as Jodak begins to patiently unwind the rope around her wrists.
Or we can sit in silence. Silence is also a choice.
Cut to.
Exterior, beyond the walls of Camulodunum, later. Agro and Aeronwen exit the main gate, and seeing their queen, the tribal warriors all around begin to cheer and chant, Aeronwen. Aeronwen is not quite certain how to react to this, but smiles and gives them what they seem to want from her. Seeing Branwen making her way towards them up ahead, Aeronwen's face breaks with the broad smile. She begins to run, not caring whether this is the way a queen should behave.
Branwen! Bran!
Seeing her older sister, Branwen's face also fills with joy as she opens her arms to receive Aeronwen, who embraces her, lifting her from the ground and spinning around. The pair laugh and hold on to one another for a long time, tears forming in both pairs of eyes.
You're okay?
I am here.
Aeronwen notes a change in her sister, but can't really put a finger on what it is.
Of course you're here.
Branwen's gaze drifts towards the gate in the town beyond.
Don't go in there, Bran. Please. There is nothing in there that you want to see.
Branwen looks back to her sister, taking in the blood that covers her hands, arms, and face.
I've already seen it. All of it. And more.
Cut to.
Exterior Camulodunum, the Temple of Claudius, early evening. There is a hustle and bustle out in the main square, surrounding the temple. Droves of warriors are content in looting the many houses and shops, drinking and singing. Others are more destructive and more violent, and there are still cries and pleas for mercy to be heard above the general commotion. On the steps of the Temple of Claudius, Rufus, unable to stand, cut up and bleeding beyond saving, is propped against the main doors. No one pays him any attention as he speaks quietly through the door to someone on the other side. The unseen voice belongs to Apollina.
No, don't you. You keep that door locked and secured until I can speak to the Queen.
Why would she want to speak to you?
Rufus laughs and then begins to cough. He coughs more violently and ends up spitting blood on the ground.
Shit.
Rufus.
Come on, you fucking savage.
Struggling, Rufus manages to raise and bang his sword off the stone steps of the temple.
Me. Fucking answer me. I want to speak to her.
Entering the square, Boudica, flanked by several warriors, including Tyro, surveys the chaos. After a moment, She is drawn towards Rufus, shouting.
What is it you want, soldier?
She holds out her hand and is immediately given a water skin. She uncorks it and drinks from it before recorking it.
You,
Boudica nods and throws the skin to Rufus. He uncorks the skin using his teeth and takes several mouthfuls, spilling some down himself.
I am Boudica, the wronged widow of Prasutagus and dowager queen of the Iceni.
heard you at all.
Or you Romans are short.
Rufus laughs.
I'm certainly shorter than I was this morning.
As he continues to laugh, Boudica smiles receptively. Rufus's laugh once more turns into a cough. He takes another drink. Boudica waits patiently.
Why are you calling for the queen?
I want to negotiate with her for the lives of the citizens inside this temple.
And what do you have to negotiate?
Information.
Boudica cocks her head to one side.
Go on.
2.
Exterior the camp before Aeronwen's compound, early evening. Aeronwen and Branwen approach the compound. Agro follows behind them. They pause by the entrance and Aeronwen turns to address his Agro.
We'll be good from here.
Agro bows his acknowledgement to Aeronwen, then turns to Branwen.
I'm glad to see you well, Queen Bronwyn.
Branwen smiles, but it is heavy and etched with sadness. The sisters watch Agro leave, picking his way across the camp. He is handed a beaker of ale from another warrior and raises a toast with a group of them, drinking with them as they cheer together. He throws a look back at Aeronwen's compound even as the warriors clap him on the back and draw him over to their camp, refilling his cup and urging him to speak, to tell his tales of the day.
When has he ever been lost for words?
Aeronwen laughs for a moment, nodding her agreement.
He's been my very shadow since... Well, do you need something to eat or to drink?
Branwen shakes her head.
You have a guest to attend. She'll need food and drink more than I. Besides, Jodak was hoping to speak with me. Be patient with her, heir. For me?
Fine.
Looking back beyond her sister, Aeronwen notices Jodak approaching the compound entrance. He has a platter of fruit, meat, and bread balanced on one arm and a crater of wine tucked under the other. Seeing the two sisters together, his face breaks into a broad smile.
Promise.
I promise. But how did...
Approaching the pair, Jodak calls out.
Queen Aeronwen, would you possibly...
Aeronwen is already coming to his aid, relieving him of the platter and crater.
Queen Branwen, I'm glad to see you so well recovered. I was hoping to speak with you if...
Of course.
Even as Aeronwen looks confused and awed, Branwen begins to lead Jodak away from the compound.
Shall we walk, Flamekeeper?
Yes, as you please. I thought your guest might be hungry. And you too, of course, your grace.
She's not my guest.
Jodak is already at a distance, trailing Branwen.
She's not my guest.
Aeronwen turns toward her tent. Cut 2.
Interior Aeronwen's tent, continuous. Aeronwen enters the tent, food and drink in hand, to find Sabina clutching a wooden statue, her arm raised above her head, ready to use it as a club. Eyeing her with annoyance, Aeronwen places the platter of food on the table near the foot of her bed.
It's a shame you weren't prepared to be so combative this afternoon.
Well, unlike some, violence does not come naturally to me.
Remembering her promise to her sister, Aeronwen bites back her initial response, though only just.
There's food here, if you want it. And wine, I think.
That's kind of you.
It wasn't my idea.
The pair stare at one another for a moment, neither willing to be the first to drop their gaze. Eventually, Aeronwen seems to shrug, exhaling and almost shaking her head. She moves around the tent looking for 2 cups. Sabina watches her in silence. Finding 2 cups of differing composition, she returns to the small table, now largely occupied with the platter of food, and places a cup on either side. Taking up the crater of wine, she pours out a measure for herself and one for Sabina.
Has it been mixed?
Aeronwen regards Sabina, then the wine. She lifts the cup and inhales the scent of the wine before taking a mouthful and replacing the cup.
No.
Sabina tuts even as Aeronwen moves to find her jug of water. Taking up a large bronze dish, she places it on her bed and pours some water into the bowl, before placing the remainder of the jug on the table next to Sabina's cup.
It's cold.
Everything about this country is cold.
Trying desperately to keep her promise to her sister, Aeronwen shrugs and kneels before the bowl on the low bed. She takes out a small bottle of oil from a leather pouch hooked over the leg of the bed and pours several drops into the bowl. Her mouth moves as she incants silently, before plunging her hands into the bowl, washing away the blood from her arms, hands, and face. Sabina continues to watch from the corner, knowing that she should not interrupt this moment and respecting that fact. When Aeronwen is finished, she dries her hands and face on a beautifully woven piece of cloth that is also draped over the edge of the bed. She stands and makes a small sign before kissing an amulet she wears about her neck. Taking up the bowl, she moves towards the doorway.
There should be a stool over there somewhere.
She draws back the tent flap and throws the water out as Sabina looks around for the aforementioned stool, a little affronted. She moves a pile of scrolls to reveal the stool and brings it over to the table. By now, Aeronwen has done the same. Both remain standing.
You made a mess of your bed.
Aeronwen regards her questioningly.
The water.
Well, my table was occupied. Do you want to eat?
Aeronwen sits and tears off a chunk of bread, tucking into it, and then drinking from the cup before refilling it with another measure of wine. Sabina sits and adds some water to her wine, sipping at it almost demurely, and returning the water to the table.
This is a Vladnerian.
Aeronwen takes an apple and takes a bite into it, in a manner that conveys the phrase, and?
It really should only ever be drunk watered.
Is that what your civilized society tells you?
It's what your pounding head will tell you tomorrow morning if you don't take my advice.
Aeronwen looks defiantly at Sabina, then drains her cup and refills it.
Sabina, eat, don't eat. Drink, don't drink. But don't sit there feigning concern for me. In fact, do not concern yourself at all with whether or not I will regret drinking too much unwatered Falnernian wine in the morning. Yes?
Eventually, Sabina takes a handful of grapes. She eats slowly and in silence. Then...
Why were you at my house this afternoon?
To kill your husband.
Sabina is taken aback by Aeronwen's brutal honesty, almost as much as Aeronwen herself.
Instead, you saved my life. Why did you do that?
Why did I do that?
If things had been different, and Cadwallader had been there, would you have killed him?
Yes.
And if I tried to stop you?
Like you tried to stop Andilico?
I would have fought for Cadwallader.
Oh, but you would not fight for yourself. Or even for me, to help me so that you might help yourself to live.
I would have fought for Cadwallader.
It's a shame he didn't feel the same about you.
How dare you?
Oh, well, where is he then? When he should be protecting his wife like a good, noble minion of the Empire, where is he? Hiding in the temple with the mothers and babes and all the old men?
He's gone!
Aeronwen pauses, regarding Sabina blankly. She waits.
He's gone back to Gaul.
What? Why didn't you go with him?
Because he didn't come back for me.
He didn't...
I left Iceni and came home to pack. He never returned.
Sabina picks up her wine and takes a long drink. She replaces the cup. A long silence passes. Aeronwen moves a hand to refill Sabina's cup, but waits. Sabina nods, and Aeronwen pours the wine. But Aeronwen can't hold her tongue.
And still, you would have fought for him. You would have died for him.
Would you have killed me? Had he been there? If things had been different? Today you saved me, but would you, Aeronwen? Would you have killed me?
Before Aeronwen can answer, there is a call from beyond the door. The voice belongs to Merla.
Aeronwen.
Aeronwen stands and moves to the entrance. She looks outside. Angle on. Merla at the door.
Your mother wishes to speak with you.
She nods at Merla before returning to Sabina. Aeronwen takes a dagger from her boot. It is the one she used on Andilico earlier that day. She places the dagger on the table.
Should you need it. You should be safe here, but...
I can't defend myself with this. I told you.
It's not. It's not for defense. You are a patrician woman. Come on, you're a noble woman. I'm sure you've been taught how to take your own life.
Sabina nods.
Sacrifice before enslavement.
Aeronwen considers this and eventually nods her understanding.
If that is your choice.
With that, she steps outside. Follow.
Exterior, Aeronwen's tent, continuous. On the other side of the tent flap, Merla meets Aeronwen's gaze as she steps out into the now considerably darker night. In the camp beyond her compound, fires indicate the gatherings of warriors and families alike. Music and voices raised in song filled the air. Beyond the camp, the once proud and walled town of Camulodunum also burns. Aeronwen takes it all in.
She sent you to fetch me.
I offered.
She will never respect you if you continue to act as a slave.
She will never respect me because I remind her of our father's infidelity.
That is no fault of yours.
No, but it is the role I've been dealt by the gods.
Aeronwen looks at her questioningly.
Your mother is Boudica, the wronged widow of Prasutagus, betrayed and shamed by Rome. That is her role, and she plays it well. But I'm a constant reminder of the first betrayal she felt, if not the latest. I am the shame she felt when the king chose to lay with a slave. When he chose to keep me and save my life, in acknowledging, even in the smallest of ways, that I was his child. And when he recognized me before all and proclaimed me princess, do you see? My presence keeps the flame of hatred alive and burning inside of her. Hatred for that first taste of betrayal and shame that she felt all those years ago and has done ever since. Every time she looks into my face and sees his.
But you are so much more than that.
We all have our roles to play. I am content to be the blackbird to Branwen's raven.
And what am I?
You're a Aeronwen. You are fair carnage.
I don't know how to be both.
Merla indicates towards the exit of the compound, where two warriors once more stand on guard, Dulcus and Persa. Aeronwen speaks to them as they pass, indicating to the tent.
My word stands. If anything happens to her, I will take it out of your flesh.
Both of the young warriors bow their heads, then stand a little straighter.
Yes, my queen.
Follow.
Exterior the camp, continuous. Merla smiles to herself.
And you say you don't know how to be both.
Aeronwen cannot help but smile a little in return, even as she takes in the strange sights, sounds and smells. Should the aftermath of such a day feel this way?
Do you know what she wants? My mother.
I think she's heard about your guest.
Aeronwen stops in her tracks.
She's not my guest.
Merla shrugs and continues to walk, leading the way. Cut to.
Exterior, Boudica's compound, moments later. Aeronwen and Merla arrive at Boudica's compound. The two battled, hardened warriors that used to guard the Great Hall now stand guard before Boudica's compound. They bow to Aeronwen as she approaches. Merla does not follow, and Aeronwen turns to look at her.
This conversation is not mine.
Aeronwen nods and leaves Merla, stepping inside her mother's grand tent.
Interior, Boudica's tent continuous. Boudica is sat opposite Adminios. The pair are deep in conversation as Aeronwen enters. Seeing her, Adminios stands.
Queen Aeronwen, congratulations on the sacking of Camulodunum, the first of many great victories.
Aeronwen nods, not really knowing how she should respond. Boudica stands and raises her own chalice.
Our people fought well together and wrought a great victory for us all.
This seems to satisfy Adminios, who drains his cup and replaces it on a low table near his chair.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have warriors to congratulate and tales to regale with many more cups of wine to drink before the moon reaches her zenith. Until tomorrow.
He moves toward the mouth of the tent, bowing his head once more to Aeronwen as he passes her. He exits. Boudica indicates for Aeronwen to sit. She does.
Drink.
Aeronwen shakes her head.
The day has taken its toll on you.
On all of us.
Yes, but you more than others, I believe.
Why so?
Saving the lives of Roman citizens.
Mother,
Taking them as your slave.
Not them. Just her.
And who is she?
Clearly you already know.
Don't, Aeronwen. Not now. You're walking a dangerous path.
I have been arms deep in the blood of our enemies today, but this is a dangerous path.
Yes.
Why?
Because not all of the blood you spilt today was Roman.
Aeronwen opens her mouth to speak, but cannot think of the words to defend her actions before her mother.
Who told you?
Does it matter?
To me.
He wants to protect you.
Agro.
He is not your enemy, Aeronwen.
I know.
Do you? Because while our people are digging graves and mourning the loss of warriors who died today, fighting for you, their queen, the enemy of our people is sitting in your tent enjoying the luxuries of food, wine, and the ability to breathe.
Is Sabina the enemy of our people?
Boudica seems to laugh, but it is sad.
She is Roman.
She was defenseless.
Wife of the procurator.
Scared of...
A man who is the living representative of the oppression that Rome has wrought on us all.
But she is not him.
The man responsible for all that we have suffered and endured at the hands.
She is not responsible.
They are all responsible.
Aeronwen, close to tears, is shaking with fury and confusion, adrenaline coursing through her veins.
She was helpless, and he wouldn't back down. And he said he was going to, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk away. I couldn't do that and know that she would be humiliated and suffer that way. Not when I could have stopped it.
You should not have interfered.
No, it should not have interfered, but why?
Let me ask you something. Did you consider the suffering of those you slew today as you waded arms deep in the blood of our enemies?
That's different.
Is it?
Of course it is.
And you said a prayer to Andraste as you cleansed your skin of their blood.
As you taught me.
And would it have been so difficult to also wipe the blood of Sabina Lupa from your skin? You didn't have to leave her to the appetites of those men. You didn't have to save her either.
Aeronwen considers this for a moment.
I was left with little choice.
Andilico.
Aeronwen nods, fearing the tone with which Boudica uses his name.
He was Adminius's nephew, another prince of the Cadwallader.
Aeronwen's eyes widen.
You will be called before the War Council tomorrow to defend your actions. And I will not be able to speak on your behalf or protect you from their judgment.
But I am Queen of the Iceni. Does that count for nothing?
You are queen. And were this a war between tribes, between the Iceni and the Cadwallader, you would be venerated by our people and respected by theirs when we returned the body of their prince, who knew the risk he took in facing the Iceni in battle. But this is no tribal war. The Iceni, the Cadwallader, and so many other clans have come together under your banner. rallied together to fight for you, for your cause against the common enemy of all our people, against Rome. Every warrior out there needs to know that when they fight, they stand beside a brother or a sister who is willing to fight and die with them, for them, because we are one. And instead, you slay a prince of our united people and offer sanctuary to the highest ranking Roman woman in that town.
Yes. Yes, I did. Yes. A woman. Like you or I or Branwen. I couldn't simply leave her. I couldn't.
Boudica comes to her daughter, holding her in her arms.
I understand. I understand why your heart led you to believe that saving her was the right choice. The only choice, perhaps. But that choice has left you outflanked and without friends. You must prepare to justify your actions when you are called before the council. And we must convince them that you harbour no sympathy towards the citizens of Rome, young or old, man or woman, healthy or infirm, that there is no sanctuary and no reprieve.
Hearing the iron edge to her mother's voice, Aeronwen draws back from her embrace, eyeing her fearfully.
What have you done?
I gave the order in your name, so that the council will know where your loyalties lie.
Cut to.
Exterior, before the Temple of Claudius, moments later. Noise. The sound of scared women and children within the temple, along with the sound of wood on wood, and a door beginning to give way. Rufus's headless corpse is still slumped against the entrance to the Temple of Claudius. His head, now without eyes or a tongue, has been nailed to the door jamb. As we take in this gory sight, the temple doors finally give way and a mass of multi-clan warriors storm the building, slaying everyone in sight. Cut to.
Interior, the Temple of Claudius, continuous. We do not see the full extent of the carnage, only glimpses. We hear the screams and pleas that are cut off all too soon amidst shouts and war cries and metal cutting through bone. We see objects being smashed, statues, votive dishes, boxes of coins, etc. spilling everywhere. There are shouts amongst the victims of this horror to take cover in the cellar, a room at the back of the temple with brass doors and heavy locks. The pursuing warriors are enraged by this, and those who do not make it into the cellar in time are savagely and brutally cut down and torn apart. Cut to.
Exterior, the Temple of Claudius, continuous. The blood running along the tiled floor is such that it begins to flow out of the temple and down the steps. We pull back across the street and still out beyond the destruction and the chaos, past the mangled bodies of soldiers and boys and animals, twisting this way and that as we move through the streets. We pull back through the thick wall that surrounds Camulodunum. Cut to.
Exterior, beyond the walls of Camulodunum, continuous. Beyond the walls, we continue to pull back past the fires, between the native people laughing and singing, rejoicing, eating, drinking and copulating with abandon. Cut to.
Exterior, the camp, continuous. We pull back to a clearing in the middle of a wide circle of campfires, where one small being stands alone, watching. In her mind's eye, the horror that she has already witnessed in her dreams. The lone figure is that of Branwen. We close tight on her face, seeing the pain she seems to be experiencing as life after life is extinguished in the burning town of Camulodunum. She shakes her head. A tear runs down her cheek, even as she brings her hands to cover her eyes, knowing that this will not help her, that she cannot shake the vision of this atrocity or of those to come. In a nearby tree, a large raven caws ominously. Snap to black. The end.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you for sticking with us and joining us this evening. That was, I know that was a really long episode. That was the penultimate episode of this first series. So, yeah, I think that's why there was such an awful lot to get through in there. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for jumping in on taking over a couple of different voices here and there when was needed. very, very, very well done to Becky. I feel a huge
Yes.
congratulations
Oh my
need to go out for your massive kind of ancient Welsh speech in the middle of that after you woke up as Branwen. So thank you. Yeah, Elric, brilliant. I'm going to miss Rufus so much.
Oh God, I'm nearly crying.
So thank you. And yes, don't forget to tune in next week for the final episode of Series 1, Boudica, Flame of the Iceni. And thank you for being with us this far. Yay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.